Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. That's right. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. I'm trying to be an agent from the Matrix. Today is Tuesday, and you help the neighbor out with her garbage. The landlady. Let's do this, man. Very excited about the show. Jay Weidner is back with us, and you can help support everything that we do around here by getting yourself a Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. We have 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them, 2 links below. Game Changer membership. Just order a t-shirt, order 2 t-shirt. Everything is autographed, and everything includes shipping. Wow, you can see my new tattoos. Look at that. Can you see this one? Fender and Gibson. That's what I was going to name my sons, but I never had sons. So now I've got Fender and Gibson on my arms. Yeah. I got to pay for those guitars that Fender sends me and Gibson sends me. And I did it with tattoos. Anyway, I just noticed them. I don't know why I just did that. I've never done that on the show, but I just did. All right. What an amazing week on the show. And this is why I do this show. I do this show for me. You think I do it for you, and that's good. If you think that, that's why you're here. But I do the show for me. Like that conversation, last night with Dragon from Skinwalker Ranch. That was amazing. Tonight, Jay Weidner is back with us, and it's going to be another great show tonight. He's got a new film out. It's called A Clockwork Shining. I have seen it. It's on Amazon. You can go and check it out. It's especially after tonight's show. You're going to want to check that out. Now, tomorrow night, Wednesday, Petros Koutoupas is with us, and we are going to be talking about ancient mysteries. We're going to go back, the Greeks, Romans, and before, and touch upon Egypt and everything else, and what he has learned and how he has started to connect the dots there. So we're going to do that tomorrow night. Then Thursday night, another filmmaker, James Fox, is back with us. His new film is out. Well, it's not out yet. It's premiering on the 16th, the worldwide premiere, and it is called The Program. So Thursday night, James Fox. Somebody pinch me. Got Jay Weidner and James Fox on the same week on my show. It doesn't get any better than that, kids. All right. 4 major events coming up. Conscious Life Expo. I'm hosting it again next year, 2025. This year, next month, 2 months, February 7th through the 10th, 2025 at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. Right after that, the links for that are below. Right after that, Rise of the Guardians. That is March 29th and the 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. And then I'm heading to the Contact Modalities Expo in the Midwest, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin. And then I'm going to Peru 2 times in 2025. The first tour coming up is June 17th through the 27th, 2025. And it is for the Inca celebration of the sun. It is the solstice done right there at Sacsayhuaman. We have special seating. We're going to see all of Peru, and we're going to go to Bolivia and do all of that. But we're going to be there for the Inca celebration of the sun. And we have tickets left for that, hiddenincatours.com. All of the links for everything are below. All right. Let's get straight to it. Jay Weidner is back with us. I don't know how many interviews Jay and I have done over the years. It's been a lot of events, a lot of things. But tonight he's back, and he's got a new film out. And yeah, Stanley Kubrick. It's called A Clockwork Shining. We're going to talk about that film and his previous works in and around Stanley Kubrick. And now I want to say this really quick. I'll bring it up with Jay when he comes on. On my flight, I think it was, I don't know if it was to or back from Peru. It was one of the two. I watched The Shining. And no, it was on my way to Peru. I watched The Shining on the plane. And I can't watch The Shining now. I can't just enjoy the film. I got Jay Weidner in the back of my head, and I'm looking through the film, and there is so much going on with The Shining and A Clockwork Orange. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that film. Well, this new film, A Clockwork Shining, ties a lot together with Stanley Kubrick and what was going on with the government and secret programs around that time, and right before Stanley was contacted by the government. And we're going to do all of that tonight and talk about these films. But then I arrive in Peru, and I'm walking around a site. I don't know which one. That part doesn't matter. I'm walking around a site, and I get a text from Jay. Hey, man. Right. And I thought, the universe is a trippy place. The universe knows what's going on. It just does. And so tonight, Jay Weidner is back because of that flight to Peru. I want to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Jay Weidner. Jay, hey. The universe is something not to be trifled with, is it?
Well, the universe is always communicating with us and helping us along, and it wants us to succeed. And, I think we have to understand that, and that when you have a synchronicity or anything like that, man, you better like wake up immediately and start paying attention, because that's the universe knocking on your door saying, dude, I'm here and I'm trying to talk to you and you're not listening to me. So, doesn't surprise me at all. I have a deep relationship with Peru, and I saw your videos with Brian, who's one of my favorite people. And, a lot of my first books took place in Peru, and I've always had a really incredible relationship with that place.
Yeah, here's my respect to the universe. I replied back to you and said, as soon as I get back, we're nailing this down. I ain't gonna mess with that. This thing got booked. I'm not gonna mess with the universe, man. I'm not going to mess with the universe. So let's actually start here. You just mentioned your first book, and I am often next week. Jay is on the 19th is my 11th anniversary of Fade to Black, right? So over 2,000 shows and everything else that came off of that, coast to coast, and of course Gaia and you and History Channel, all of that. But you have been with me for this ride since the beginning, my friend.
Yeah,
and it's been absolutely wonderful. And I've been asked over and over again. So, man, who's your favorite guest? What was the best show? And I've got one answer: Jay Weidner, the Falconelli special. That man. Right.
Well, yeah. What's funny about that is, I had just started at Gaia, and I was, starting to, age. And I said, I'm going to help people who are younger than me get a break. And then I got this email from you. You're like, I'm a nobody, dude. I read your book, and you actually read my book, because I could tell
right
from the email. Right. I was like, wow, this guy actually, which is a tough read. I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It's a tough read. And I was like, wow, I'm impressed. This guy actually read my book. I guess I'm going to say yes. And then it came on, and 10 months, a year later, you're this huge hit and going crazy. And I was like, wow, man, that guy really rose fast. I'm impressed, Well,
it's because of people like you that I have paid attention to. I was on a path, and I was determined. And the other part to that is, I can't have in my head on my own. No, I'm researching somebody else, right? I'm not planting flags on something. I'm not discovering anything. I'm reading the research of others that came before me, like yourself. And I think that you and others saw that in me and thought, well, you know what? Yeah, good voice, right time. Yeah, let's support this guy. And I think that that's ultimately what happened. Do you remember? Now let's go on the Wayback Machine. I can't remember exactly how this happened, but you and I sat with George Norrie, the three of us. I can't remember where it was. So that part doesn't matter. And we sat and we had drinks for a few hours and just talked about the world. And that was a great night. But to have the three of us, it was kind of like the old guard, the medium guard, and the young guard, the new guard, right, all sitting at the table. Right. And what a fascinating conversation that was. We talked about alchemy, we talked about hermeticism, we talked about ancient Egypt, we talked about strange people that were in the bar that we were looking at. You know, we were doing, and but that's a great memory of mine. And like I said, you've just been around since the beginning. So just thank you for everything, my friend.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a long time ago when I became enlightened, and I realized that if you don't speak up, then you're going to become the victim of whatever it is that's going on. And I am not a victim, and I don't intend to be a victim. So,
no.
You know, and a lot of people told me to shut up, by the way, through the years. You know, hey, just shut up. You shouldn't be saying that stuff. You know, like, no, I think it has to be said. And I feel like vindicated now. I feel like,
well, you should, but it's not one specific thing or target that you were flying over. You had opinions about a lot of things going back a long time. Yeah. And if you look at something like Falconelli and how broad and intense and crazy and worldwide, not only Mysteries of the Cathedral, but when you jump into that and take that, you know, the Cross of Henday, which just sits right in the middle of this town, people walking by it all day long, not understanding the significance of that. But somebody like you comes along and not only does the research, but that research is going to be controversial. And you're going to have people go, Jay, no, you know, and you never let that kind of stuff stop you ever. Right?
No, in fact, I just got somebody had watched my new movie and said, I've been watching Jay Weidner in The Simpsons for over 20 years, and Homer Simpson gets dumber, and so does Jay. So it was clever. That. I have to admit, it was a very clever line.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Now, so, you just take it. You know, you just, once you stick your neck out, you know you're going to get somebody want to chop it off. So, you know, you just stick your neck out. And I personally, you know, a long time ago, I was talking to my old friend, the late Terrence McKenna, and he said, nature loves courage and nature loves the courageous. And so when you become courageous, nature opens up all these doors for you. And by God, that is absolutely the truth.
You know, I think the opposite of courageous is coward.
Yep.
And if you go down that road and you sit on your hands, that's on you. If you know better and you don't speak up about it, that's on you. That's on you. Whatever happens, that's on you.
Well, you'll pay for it karmically. I guarantee it.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you've called this film, Jay. You've called this film Part 3. Let's start with that. What was the inspiration not only behind this film, but of course a continuation of 2 other films, and to call this Part 3?
Well, what happened, actually, it's actually a fun story. So what happened was, it was my birthday a year and a half ago, and a famous filmmaker, I'm not going to say his name, called me up to wish me happy birthday. And, you know, he's the same age as me. And he says, so how many people are you mentoring? I'm like, what? And I go, yeah, how many? I'm mentoring 4 people. How many people are you mentoring? I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, how many people are you teaching your skills to? Young people. I'm like, well, Not many, in fact, zero. And he like kind of guilt tripped me on it, right? And just like a couple days later, because this is the universe speaking again to me, right? I get a call from a young guy that I'm friends with, and we start talking, and he says, I really want to be a filmmaker, but I can't get a break. And I said, yeah, well, when you're 30 years old these days, especially being, male like you're probably not going to get the break you want. And then I decided to give the guy a break, and we made a first film, JFKX. This is a kind of a test, see if we could work together, because the real film was going to be a Clockwork Shining, but I wanted to make sure that I could work with someone before I did it. So we did a test run. That was a very, very big success. And then I made enough money to do a Clockwork Shining in the right way. In other words, go out and get interviews and get Walter Bosley and Kathy O'Brien and Joe Atwell on Catcher in the Rye and all that. And Ryder Lee is the young man that I'm working with. He just did an excellent job. I mean, technically, it was his chance. He smelled the smoke of a break coming his way and took it for all it was worth, worked like 20 hours a day for like 4 months straight, and directed and edited, because he's the director and editor. I'm the writer producer. This incredible, duo combination that we did, and I think it was a marriage made in heaven. And we're going to do other films together in the future, but it was really a perfect example of the elderly guy who knows the world really well imparting information to the younger guy on how to operate, how to make the film, how to do it right. I didn't have to tell him much. He's a pretty smart guy. So I feel like really gratified, because I'm not only giving all of my knowledge to somebody young. I'm doing it with a woman right now, Helena Resner. We're doing a pilot for a series that I hope I could sell to Amazon or Netflix. So I'm doing it with a number of younger people now, all in their early 30s, and it's really gratifying to do that. And I wish I'd done it earlier. Actually, after I retired from Gaia, I kind of spent 4 years just pursuing the things that I wanted to pursue, like gardening and being a good chef and things I never had time to do before. But this got me back into the business, and I have to say that we're cranking out some good stuff at a very important time in history. So basically, A Clockwork Shining is saying that Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is really him telling us about the MK Ultra programs that were started in the 50s, but not made famous until the mid 70s, and with the Frank Church hearings, and that the family, Jack and Wendy and Danny in The Shining, are actually being experimented on by a government agency, and that Stanley did not really believe in the supernatural or the paranormal. And so when he was kind of saddled with this book of ghosts and goblins attacking this family, he didn't know how to handle it. So he had to change it. And when he changed it, he added all these layers, that movie Room 237, which I'm in, and a couple other films have talked about how, it's about the moon landing, it's about the Holocaust, about the destruction of the Native Americans. And I believe it's about all of those. I actually believe that Stanley sat down and said, I am going to create the first ultimate multi-layered movie that's going to be 4D chess all the way. And I believe that he did that with The Shining. I think it's probably one of the most brilliant films ever made. And that's saying a lot.
That is saying a lot. Well, it's kind of funny. The top 2 or 3 films, best films ever made, Stanley made them all. That's kind of weird too as well. Now, but
Agreed.
I did notice something when I was a kid that you are now pointing out to everybody now, and because the story has never really been told, most people find it kind of shocking. And that is this. I see The Shining, okay, when I was a kid. I see The Shining. I then get my hands on the book. And I was very excited about that because I got to read the book version and more detail and I read the book and I was like, it's two different. No, right? It's two different stories. It's two completely different situations. And without going into all of that, what the differences are, because that's not the point of this show tonight. But you break it down pretty methodically, and I think that it's a really solid point of yours that Stanley agreed to a screenplay and agreed to the book, but he ended up rewriting pages every single day. And by the time that is done throughout the production, you now have a movie that is Stanley's movie, and it's only called The Shining because of a contract issue.
That's right. Dang straight. And Stephen King knew this and saw it. And there's a famous scene in The Shining. So in the book, The Shining, which is an interesting book, Jack, the lead character, has a red Volkswagen. But in the movie, it's a yellow Volkswagen. But there's this famous scene where Halloran, the African-American cook who's trying to save Danny and Wendy, is driving through a snowstorm in Denver and sees a 18-wheeler pushed over on top of a red
Volkswagen. And he drives right by it and looks at it. Scatman Crothers.
Only guy in the entire universe who saw that film the first time and knew what that meant was Stephen King. And it was the biggest,
Yes, it was.
King ever. And
well, because in the book, he talks about that Volkswagen in the book, page after page after page, and makes it a point. And then Kubrick smashes it in that scene. And it's now, okay. So the MK Ultra side, now let's go there. For everybody. This is what the show is about tonight. Is that if Frank Church, Senator Frank Church, hadn't done the reveal that he did at that time,
1975,
we were very close to not knowing anything about MK Ultra. All documents were ordered shredded across the country, and they were only a few hundred pages of actual documents survived. There's no telling how many millions of pages were shredded, right?
Yeah, so in 1975, Kubrick is just coming off of the failure of Barry Lyndon, which was 1974, his massive failure, which is a pretty interesting film, but, it just didn't jive with the audiences. I loved it, but, I'm different. So and he just signed with Warner Brothers. He had a hit with Clockwork Orange, a failure with Barry Lyndon. But what people don't realize is that in 1972, as he came off of A Clockwork Orange, Warner Brothers actually offered him to direct the book The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. And he read the book. And again, his whole thing that he really didn't like the paranormal and the supernatural made him not accept to do the book. So they chose William Friedkin, another A-list director who had a massive hit with The Exorcist, one of the biggest hits of all time. And Kubrick did Barry Lyndon, and it failed. So it's 1975, and Warner Brothers receives the manuscript for The Shining just as the Frank Church hearings are going on. And they read it and they say, wow, we got a hot horror novel here. Maybe we can have lightning strike twice. We'll give this to another A-list director like William Friedkin, and we'll have, he'll do a hot horror novel and we'll have another hit. And Stanley was just coming off of a failure, his only failure, by the way. And I believe that Warner Brothers came to him and said, here's the manuscript. Why don't you read it? When he read it, he sort of liked it, actually. And he said, well, I kind of I'm only imagining this. I kind of like this. And they said, well, Stanley, we lost a lot of money with Barry Lyndon. I think, you kind of have to do this, because, we signed this contract with you and we love you and everything. And Stanley said, okay, I think I can take this, because what I'll do is I'm going to kind of jettison all the stuff I don't like and I'm going to include all these different layers that I do like, and nobody's going to be able to figure it out. And the reason that he's writing the script, and this is all portrayed in Vivian Kubrick's brilliant documentary, The Making of The Shining, he literally sent one script in, which was sort of based on the Stephen King novel. Warner Brothers approves it. And then behind his co-screenwriters back, the actors back, the other people that are involved back, he's rewriting the script every day. Right. He's doing it on purpose, because this is how he's going to hide the 3D chess that he's playing, or 4D chess. Right. So, we're dealing with a guy with like a 200 IQ or 190 IQ, a chess champion who would play 5 games of chess in the village, that park in the village where they play chess. He would do 5 games at once. I mean, we're talking like if you guys know how to play chess, and you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. Chess is a game where you have to stay 8 to 10 steps ahead, and to have 5 games going where each one is 8 to 10 steps ahead means you have some kind of IQ. So Kubrick masterfully planned this out as a movie that would live forever. That's what I believe. And that he added in, yes, the moon landings, yes, the Holocaust. I believe all of that, because it all fits together. We have Operation Paperclip funding the moon landings, which is part of the Holocaust, coming to America. Wendy and Danny, the first time we see them in the movie, she's reading Catcher in the Rye, while Danny and her are both dressed in red, white, and blue costumes, because Catcher in the Rye is, of course, an MK Ultra project created by J.D. Salinger, who was part of the OSS and the early CIA. And Kubrick masterfully weaves all this through the movie. And so what happened was Ryder Lee, the young man that I'm working with, and we were talking, and started mentioning different things about The Shining. I said, hey, my old friend Dave McGowan, who wrote the book Weird Scenes in Laurel Canyon, and I were having a conversation one time, and we were talking about how much the Lookout Mountain Hotel on the top of Laurel Canyon, which later became the Air Force intelligence movie making base, looks so much like the hotel that Stanley had chosen to be the hotel for the exterior of The Shining. And Dave McGowan was like, yeah, man, it's really true. I noticed that too. And then later, I was talking to Stanley Kubrick's assistant, Leon Vitale, who was also the actor in Barry Lyndon, who played the son, Lord Bullington. And I said, so what was it like working with Stanley on The Shining? And he said, well, Stanley, what he did was he sent me out with a camera, and I went to like 80 hotels in America taking pictures of the interior and the exterior of the hotel. Sounds very much like Stanley, right? And sending it back to Stanley, and then he's, okay, now go to this hotel and take pictures. And so finally, when I got to the hotel that's in Oregon, I forget the name of the mountain there, that actually became the hotel that they used. I took the pictures of the hotel, sent them back to Stanley. He said, that's it. You did it. We found the hotel we're looking for. You can stop your search, right? As if Stanley was looking for a hotel. They have those sloping Swedish roofs and everything, right? And so over and over, we found these pointers pointing towards this, which led me then to look into Stanley Kubrick's life and to see if there was, any kind of, for sure he had intelligence links with the moon landing and with making of 2001, because at the end he thanks, Langley and naval intelligence and all these people for helping him make 2001. So it was always that he already had links to the military industrial aerospace complex. So that led me to look even further. And then I discovered that, he was, listen, it's the most talented filmmaker of his generation. If you think that the intelligence agencies and the CIA aren't going to get interested in this guy as a persuader, you're completely wrong. We don't know. We know that Stanley lived in LA from approximately the early 40s till the mid 60s when he moved to England, back and forth between New York and LA, right? And so we know he probably did work at the Lookout Mountain facility.
He probably did.
For sure.
Probably. Well, everybody was plus everybody's looking for work. Everybody needs a paycheck, and that thing is sitting right there by the way, everybody, Lookout Mountain and Laurel Canyon, smack dab, you draw in the middle of Hollywood. I lived on that hill. I've been all over that hill. And and the reputation. Now, beautiful, yes. Cool people, yes. That Laurel Canyon market, man, I spent more time on that little market right there on what is that, Outpost or whatever that road is.
That's the one that Jim Morrison sings about. The tiny store. Tiny store.
And you know what's right next door? The magician. What's his name? That died.
Houdini.
Yeah, Houdini's house is right there, man. Right there.
Oh, it's an incredible place. I lived on Wonderland Avenue.
Area.
Yeah. I lived on Wonderland Avenue for a year in the early 80s. And wow, man, I explored the whole area. I went up to Cielo Avenue where the Manson murders were.
Yeah.
It was there's so much history. There's an article in, I believe, 1938 LA Times talking about the tunnel system that's under Laurel Canyon. Do you know about this? There's this tunnel system. And when Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson lived right next to each other in Laurel Canyon. And when Marlon Brando, they were best friends. And when Marlon Brando died, Jack Nicholson asked the LA Fire Department to burn down Brando's house for unknown reasons. I don't even want to know about it. And so they decided, we'll do a test fire burn, right? So they burned down Brando's house, and as the water was gushing over the house, they looked, and there was a tunnel that was sinking between Nicholson's house.
That probably went to Disney and probably went to the Freemason building at Hollywood and Highland, all the way downtown to the LA Fitness Center. That's my prediction.
Oh, and the Magic House. What's it called? The
Magic Castle.
Yeah. The Magic Castle. Yeah. They're all connected, I'm sure. And so Laurel Canyon is part of the movie, and it's a big part of the movie. In fact, it's some of the most intriguing parts of the movie because Jack Nicholson, was really the most famous actor and really writer of the Laurel Canyon film scene that came out in the mid 60s. And, he was a star of the most famous Laurel Canyon film, Easy Rider. He wrote Psych Out. He wrote The Trip, which was about LSD. Roger Corman directed it. So Kubrick was well aware of all this. In fact, when he saw Easy Rider, he told Christiana Kubrick, his wife, I'm going to hire this guy and work with him one day. Right. So, he really liked Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson actually watched over Vivian Kubrick while she lived in LA when she was in the Scientology thing. During the making of The Shining, he asked, Jack, hey, will you watch over Vivian, make sure she's okay? Because I'm not sure I can trust any of these people over there. And he didn't know what to do with them. And so Jack would religiously call her every 2 weeks. How you doing? How's everything going? And Jack really liked it.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
You kind of dusted over a couple of things and that I think need to really be looked at and addressed. One of, I think that the beginning of Stanley's connection to all of this, you and I have talked about this before, but it's in the movie, and you just mentioned it here. When you go back to Dr. Strangelove, and that movie and Failsafe at the same time was made about the same time, and things were kind of freaking out with the intelligence community, the military-industrial complex in Hollywood. These films are being made, and so Stanley turns around and makes Dr. Strangelove. All right. Comedy, yes. Scare the crap out of you, probably a lot more than the funny part does in the film. But the scenes, the interior shots of the B-52, Stanley wanted the help of the Air Force on that, and they flipped him the bird and said no. So he, with his art director and his people, Stanley is meticulous in all of his filmmaking, every shot, every frame, from the editing to the lenses that are used, the lighting, all the way down to the soundtrack. Stanley is involved with all of it, and he is picky and meticulous. Part of the allure of his films, they're so damn perfect, right? So the release comes out of Dr. Strangelove, and they freaked out. They thought Stanley had a spy. Yep. They were like, "This is how did you know?" Well, I think that was the beginning of the relationship there. He had phone numbers, he had connections, and I think that they appreciated his approach to filmmaking. Now, if you rush all of that up to something like The Shining, Stanley's attention to detail and what is in his film is on purpose. When Danny stands up playing with his Matchbox, his Hot Wheels, he stands up and he's got that Apollo 11 sweater on. That is not by accident. And that is just one small example of everything else that is going on in this film.
Right. And the pattern on the carpet, it's a hexagonal pattern with this little like weird curve at the end. If you look at Google images of a launch pad 39A where Apollo 11 took off from, it looks exactly like it. It's a hexagonal pattern with the driveway to bring in the rocket and everything, right? And Danny takes off from that, right? And then he travels down the hallway to room 237. Well, in 1968, the making of 2001, which I believe was a test case for the Apollo stuff, the mean distance between the Earth and the moon was 237,000 miles. Kubrick changed that from room 217 in the book to room 237, and that was the reason why. And so we see this like multi-layered, ingenious, I don't know what, not a mind. I would like to think that The Shining is about mind control. It's not trying to mind control us, but there's this weird thing going on in The Shining that we discovered and put in the movie. And that is that we have Shelley Duvall, Wendy, reading A Catcher in the Rye. It's like, well, okay, what's A Catcher in the Rye? Then we bring in Joe Atwill, who shows us that The Catcher in the Rye was written by an OSS CIA agent, that it was involved in 2 assassination attempts within a year after the release of The Shining. The assassination of John Lennon and the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan in early 1981. And so both assassins stopped after they got done shooting and started reading A Catcher in the Rye.
They had the book in their possession, didn't they?
Yeah.
During the assassination. Let me before we get to the break, I want to set this up for when we come back. A Clockwork Orange is certainly an MK Ultra film, top to bottom, front to back. That's exactly what it's about. But that film was shot in 70 and 71, released in 72. The church hearings and the vast knowledge that went public on MK Ultra wasn't until 1974, 1975. The reveal being around late 1974, the hearings were in 1975. But that was clearly 3 solid years after Kubrick releases A Clockwork Orange. Are you of the opinion that Stanley was aware of MK Ultra before and during the production of A Clockwork Orange? Because the similarities are spot on.
Yeah, because here's another thing that people don't understand. So Kubrick made, my postulation, of course, is that Kubrick, I don't know whether they went to the moon or not. I think they probably did, but that what they showed us was fake for various reasons. Soviet Union looking at our equipment, they didn't want to see it. Lots of different national security reasons. I totally actually agree with them for doing that. I would too. It's exactly what I would do. But what's interesting is that Buzz Aldrin wrote a book called Return from the Moon about 2 years after they got back from the moon landing. And in the book, he talks about how he was at a conference a year after the moon landing in Las Vegas, and a reporter asked him, I'm paraphrasing, this is from his autobiography. He says, I was on the stage and a reporter said, come on, Buzz, tell us what it was really like to be on the moon. And then Buzz says, suddenly I started getting dizzy. I wanted to vomit. I started losing my balance. I almost fell over. My wife came over. I put my arm on her shoulder. She led me out to an alleyway where I think he said he vomited. All right. And it's like, wow, what's this? And then I realized, well, this is exactly what happens to Alex in A Clockwork Orange when he hears a thought that he can't think, right? Whether it's about violence or sex. But this time it'd be about the moon landing. Tell us what really happened on the moon, Buzz, right? Then he gets ill. And I thought, wow, what if Kubrick, went to NASA and said, well, what if these guys start talking, right? Say 1966 or whatever. And they say, well, no, we got the special program that if they even think about it, they'll get sick. And he says, really? He said, yeah, Alec Burgess talks all about it in his book, A Clockwork Orange, came out a couple of years ago, right? So Stanley gets the book, he reads it, goes, oh my God, this is amazing, right? That's what I think actually happened. I think that he was led into it, and that they had, and this is why Neil Armstrong never did any interviews, ever. He didn't want to get sick. He's like, I'm not going to get it.
Well, you know who else didn't do interviews? J.D. Salinger.
No, he didn't. You're right.
No, he did not. He did not.
I had never thought of that.
Yeah, he did not. The crazy part, disappeared. Here, well, okay. Let's. Can we stay right here? I like J.D. Salinger.
Me too.
For a lot of different reasons, I do. And now on the surface, you can say, it's like the song My Way. He lived it. He did it his way. He did it all his way. And if you could do it like that, I would do it like J.D. Salinger. Or is there another reason for that silence, right? So Salinger, if you look at I'm going to gloss over this. Book comes out in 1965 or 1955.
Yeah.
The book sells, Jay, and just so the audience understands, 60 million copies. 60 million copies. 60 followed by a million. That's a lot. And it still sells between 250,000 and 500,000 copies per year today, which is a bestseller on anybody's standard, right? Okay. That's all Salinger wrote.
Yep.
That's the only book he ever he did a couple of short stories.
Yeah.
He moves to his house and doesn't come out ever again. All that money, all that fame, the biggest book ever written in modern history. 60 million. Nobody's done that. And he just disappeared. That's the crazy part about J.D. Salinger. A lot like everything else that we're talking about here in these things. It seems like he was controlled. And I want to say that 'cause I'm a big fan, but
no, I agree. And you know who else kind of was a recluse and disappeared? Stanley Kubrick. I mean,
Stanley Kubrick. Yeah.
He had this big estate out in, I forget the name of it, north of London. And, it was a beautiful estate. But as soon as he moved into the estate, he insisted that they build 12-foot walls around the entire estate. He drove around.
He edited his films there, so he didn't have to leave.
He didn't want to leave. He hated leaving. He was a complete recluse. Everybody had to come to him. And, it's something that happens to you when you get that high up in the world. You just really want to close off. I guess probably you're not sure who to trust. You
know what, Jay? It's kind of like you and I right now. You and I don't leave our homes.
It's true.
But, we're sitting here talking about it, and man, you have built, you've got your ranch, right? You don't have to leave. You don't have to leave. It's a beautiful place, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I live in a resort, to be honest with you. I really do. I got a big jacuzzi and a great deck and a mountain views. And, why would I want to leave out and live in the world where everybody's like hating on each other,
Yeah. See this behind me? Who would leave this? Nobody. Yeah. But J.D. Salinger, Kubrick, Neil Armstrong, and so many that you see this pattern develop. And do you think that Stanley was ever worried that people would figure out the messages that he was putting into these films, or was it done with intention all the way to the end with Eyes Wide Shut? And AI, by the way, too, as well. AI, and it took Spielberg to come along and finish that, but there was stuff going on in that film too as well.
Oh yeah. Well, let me tell you a story that I haven't really told much. In 1999, in early 1999, March of 1999, I went on a long research mission to France for my first book, A Monument to the End of Time, about Fulcanelli. And I spent 6 weeks or something in France and was, every day, because when you're traveling, you do 16-hour days, you sleep as little as you can because, it's going to be over soon. You got research. And I got home on March 10th, 1999. And what was weird was the last 2 nights I was in France, I was in Paris, and I'd get home late. I turn on the TV to the great French television, their central network, and they showed Eyes Wide Shut. Or no, they showed Full Metal Jacket. And I was like, what? Full Metal Jacket's on? In French, so it was really a trip watching it. And then the next night I got home, and I turned out it was 2001 Space Odyssey. I said, why is French cinema showing Stanley Kubrick films? So I got back to the States and I found out that he died on March 9th, and that French cinema, of course, was giving him this huge homage, right? And it was about maybe 4 days later. It was a Saturday after Stanley Kubrick died. And I was up in my house in Colorado, 9,000 feet, and it was snowing. It was early in the morning on a Saturday, and I was exhausted from the research trip. So I was kind of in this weird state. And I sat down on the couch, and my wife got up, and she was also exhausted. And she said, you look really strange today. What's going on? And I said, I don't know, but I feel really strange. And she said that I closed my eyes, and for the next hour and a half, I channeled Stanley Kubrick. I channeled the moon landings. 2001 is an alchemical event. She wrote it down. She was writing down furiously everything I was saying, right? And when I kind of came out of it, because I was really lethargic, I said, what happened? She said, man, you were saying some seriously profound stuff. And so even though here later, all these years later, I'm like, wow, maybe, his light body was like searching for someone that understood alchemy and filmmaking. And that's got to be a short list in 1999. And, he found me up in the mountains of Colorado and decided to come in and just download on me. And to this day, it's the only channeling I think I've ever done. And I think it gave me the edge on how I understand Kubrick and his way his mind worked and the dangers that he was in. That he was giving out secrets, but he had to do it carefully so that the powers that be wouldn't understand. And when and I wrote my article Alchemical Kubrick about how 2001 was actually about alchemy. And that actually started the whole thing. After that, I started talking to people who knew Kubrick and, people that wanted to talk to me about it. And it's just been a really wild experience to kind of have this cohabitation with the greatest filmmaker that ever lived, right? Which I don't know if there will ever be another Kubrick. I don't think there will be, because there will never be a guy who understood the process, but commanded such authority. Spielberg did the same, but Kubrick had a much sharp. I love you, Stephen. Not to say anything about you.
No, we understand.
Had a sharper mind. That's all I'm saying. More well-read, deeper.
Yeah. There's that part of it, and it also, Stanley had a way of kind of covering the bell curve. Okay, so
Yeah.
The two far reaches on a bell curve, you have the masses in the middle, but the two far are the people that meticulously pick apart cinema, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other side, and appreciate cinema. And then on the other side, you have the people that pick it apart that want to bring you down.
Right.
Stanley had a way of appealing to those two extremes on the bell curve.
Yeah.
You couldn't really criticize him, man.
Yeah, that is wild. I never thought about that. You're right. Joe Average liked the films, and the highly intellectual people liked the films, and everybody in between was kind of, half of them are going, I don't understand what's going on here, and the other half are going, I don't know what I'm watching, but it's friggin' awesome.
That's exactly yes. That's exactly it. And it doesn't. If you look, of course, with The Shining is such a good example of that. But so is 2001, and so is Full Metal Jacket. So is a Clockwork Orange.
Yep.
How many people walked away from that going, I don't know what I just saw. It was fucking great, but I'm not sure. Right. And Stanley had a way of doing that, and so the CIA. That's the perfect director for them. Absolutely. They have their own film division. They have their own entertainment division at the CIA. And somebody like Stanley that's going to come along and is as meticulous and caring about his films as he was, that could he be a tool and not know it? Or would he outsmart the CIA and use them as the tool?
It was a little of both. Yeah, there's that chess player aspect where, you fool your opponent. But, there's a biography of Stanley written by his chauffeur, very interesting biography. And in that biography, he talks about, very interesting stuff. But on the day that Kubrick's funeral happened, he came home from the funeral, and he and Stanley were the only ones that had the key to Stanley's private chamber on the mansion area. And he said that he opened up the door to Stanley's private chamber as he came home from the funeral. And the place was filled with like 20 guys, all dressed in suits, rummaging through all of Stanley Kubrick stuff, his slides, his tapes, his articles, and they took most of it with them. He doesn't know who they were. They were Americans, he said. They had American accents, and he assumes they were like some intelligence agency who came in to make sure that they gathered up anything that Kubrick might have left behind, similar to what happened to Tesla when he died. I mean, John Trump, I guess, Trump's uncle or something, and a bunch of FBI guys came into Tesla's apartment in New York and rummaged through everything and took it all with them, and we don't know it.
It's still missing, and it's still missing, and we will never know what they took from Kubrick's house.
We will never know, and I mean, what was it? What was he working on? And since he was so meticulous, as his wife says, in keeping everything, he kept everything, files. He kept film that he'd cut out of movies. He kept it, right? I mean, he didn't get rid of it, or he kept it. I mean, for whatever reason. And so, he was probably a liability to the people that he had been working for. And, I personally think that if I was the head of the CIA or NASA or Air Force intelligence, I would be hiring Stanley Kubrick to do everything that I wanted. I mean, he would be my first choice. And we show in the film that the Office of Information, which is a federal agency, was searching for film directors in 1964. And they said that Stanley Kubrick had the one with the most potential. And that was a document that we discovered in our search through the Kubrick
His
stuff.
name being in that document is like one of the craziest. That was well done. And I mean, I actually stopped and paused the film, your film at that point, to read that document. That was pretty incredible.
It is. And the other directors on the list are like Billy Wilder, and I mean, the cream of the crop of great film directors from the late 1950s, early 1960s. And you're like, well, what project are you looking for these guys for? Exactly. And did they hire all of them? Which I suspect they did, by the way.
Yes.
The thing is, why did Kubrick get listed as the one with the most potential? because Kubrick was the only director on that list who understood how to shoot a film, how to edit a film, how to light a film, how to direct actors, how to work with writers. The other guys were just guys from the theater who came into cinema, and then they had cinematographers who knew how to shoot, editors who knew how to edit. But no, Stanley Kubrick knew how to do everything. He knew cinema like nobody in his time. There's a lot of people now like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and that know cinema all the way through. And I love those guys and I appreciate their artwork. But at the time of the late 50s, there was nobody that was self-taught. Remember, there's no cinema schools in the late 50s. There was no UCLA or USC or New York University or anything like that.
Berkeley,
Kubrick, Kubrick had to teach himself everything, and he did. And only a guy with his IQ, with those archaic, machines that they used back then. Believe me, it was not easy to edit a film in 1955. It was a lot of friggin' physical work, loading the reels on the moviola and wrapping it up. And you could only shoot one shot at a time. It's nothing like editing is today. And
yeah, but when we look at some considerations here, we'll pick this up after we come back after the break. I'm going to go dust off my copy of Catcher in the Rye and bring it in here too as well. Is that Sirhan, of course Oswald and some of the other things that were going on in the late 50s and the 60s when it came to MK Ultra and the possibility of To Kill a Mockingbird, to get into all of this. Who do you think somebody was leaking this information to Stanley about these programs to allow him to turn around and incorporate that into A Clockwork Orange, which is already published work, of course, but Stanley put his own spin on it as well. And then, of course, this stuff filtered into other Stanley Kubrick stuff. Do you think somebody was leaking him either information or misinformation or disinformation directly from?
Yeah, I do. I think he had many sources. Arthur C. Clarke, of course, his co-writer on 2001, had many contacts within the intelligence and the aerospace industry. I'm sure that he brought Stanley into that world and that Stanley was completely fascinated with it. I know he was. And that he was known to be on the phone all day long when he wasn't shooting. So I think he was on the phone with these guys, asking them probably really pertinent questions about things. And then, I mean, you're a guy who asks a lot of questions. I'm a guy, after a while, after you ask enough questions of these guys, you begin to figure out the story, what's really happening. And I think that's kind of what he did. He wanted to know what was going on. And he used 2001 as his springboard into this community so that he could understand what was going on. It's no accident that the movie made after 2001 was a movie about mind control, A Clockwork Orange, right? And then after that, I believe that Stanley began making movies as experiments. I believe A Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut are movies that tell a narrative, but they're also a very big, gigantic, grandiose experiment, a mind control experiment, you might say, by Stanley, and maybe with backing from larger forces. We don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And one last point, I want your opinion on this. If you are right now in the United States, we have 300 million people, right? So if you're 50 years old in the United States, your parents, if you are, listen to what I'm saying. If you are 50 years old right now in the United States, your parents read, all of them, A Catcher in the Rye.
Oh yeah.
Every college student, male and female, right? For a couple of decades, everybody read that book. This isn't something that some extremist or David Chapman or whatever. No.
Every teacher.
Everybody, every school, every university, every library, every period read that book. And that is without exception.
That's right.
And people don't, right. Where people
It's
today,
cultural phenomena.
A cultural phenomena. And today we attribute it to, because of the media, to these extremists. No, man, the entire country read that book.
Everybody. I didn't know anybody hadn't read the book when I was like 20 years old. Everybody had read it. We talked about it constantly. And it wasn't until I read Joe Atwill's essays on the book that I actually understood it. I mean, I didn't understand it. And of course, it was pushed on us by, the powers that be for obvious reasons, which were mentioned in the book or in the movie, which is, it's.
I think I have Atwell's. I think it's called a cultural analysis of Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, I think I have that too as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, Atwill's a brilliant mind. His book about the early New Testament being a mind control operation by the Romans is also a fascinating book. But so once you understand that each of these aspects of The Shining, A Catcher in the Rye, the monarch poster on the wall behind Danny in the first scene where he meets the twins, the fact that the hotel looks a lot like Lookout Mountain, Jack Nicholson being part of the whole Laurel Canyon movie scene, the whole thing starts working itself together until you realize that he's wending a storyline that is not what you're obviously seeing. It's something that you have to think about and look at from behind the scenes more.
The film is called A Clockwork Shining. It is out now. It is in release. Everybody needs to go and watch this. Yeah, it's on Amazon right now. Our guest tonight, Jay Weidner. We will be right back. This is Fade to Black. More with Jay after this. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, the one and only Jay Weidner, is with us. And we're talking about his new film. It is called A Clockwork Orange. It is out now. Go to Amazon and get it. I wandered out of the studio and went and grabbed this. And Jay and I, he points out that Jay and I were just talking about J.D. Salinger and A Catcher in the Rye, because that scene, one of the opening scenes where Wendy is sitting at the breakfast table reading a copy of the book. And Jay, we all know the cover of that book, don't we? You can see it a mile away. And she's sitting there reading it. And it's not something that you have to catch to notice. If you've read the book, and most of the country has, you see it. You know that book, and you know exactly, because your friends were reading it and you saw them with a copy of it. You had your copy. And over the years, this is my point with this, when somebody in the media is talking about some extremist views or some person, and they had a copy of The Catcher in the Rye, everybody in the media that's looking into the camera and is talking about this has their own copy of the book. What does that make them right? You understand what I'm saying? Everybody read it, and everybody's got a copy of it somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. No. What's interesting is that, of course, the reason that the book, The Catcher in the Rye, is so famous visually is because they all have a red cover. And if you look in the movie The Shining, when Jack comes to do his interview with the manager of the hotel, there's this giant red book sitting on the hotel manager's desk, just to his right. And for years, people interested in The Shining were like, what's that red book? Why does he have this giant red book? What does it mean? Oh, it was Jung's red book. Carl Jung wrote a book called The Red Book. All these, I was like, no, it's The Catcher in the Rye. Everybody, so it's really funny. So,
it's the symbology of Kubrick, and that's why the book is there. It's saying something. It's not by accident. It's not because Wendy's character just happened to have that in her dressing or whatever. No, Stanley did everything by intent.
Oh yeah, he wanted you to pay attention to The Catcher in the Rye and to read it. And The Catcher in the Rye has many symbolic things about Masonry and Freemasonry in it, and so does Kubrick. I mean, we've pointed out in the movie that Kubrick has a lot of things that are symbolic symbols from Freemasonry. Probably, maybe Stan was a Freemason. I don't know, but I mean, the very opening shot of Eyes Wide Shut is called Nicole Kidman is standing between two pillars, which is the two pillars of Freemasonry. And Alex has the A that looks like a pyramid, as a Clockwork Shining with his all-seeing eye on the wrist of his arm. And so Kubrick was always kind of playing with the same kind of symbolism that J.D. Salinger is playing with, really. And I don't know if they come from the same, they're both, New York Jewish guys who, one has a relationship openly with intelligence. The other guy has maybe a relationship with intelligence. We don't know. Both were chess players, both interested in a lot of the same things, and so I think they may have even known each other, to be honest with you. I mean, they didn't even live that far apart from each other. They both lived in the village, and they're both around the same age. And so who knows? I mean,
well, let's can we say that right there for a second? Oh, by the way, the chat room is commenting that I said your new film was out, A Clockwork Orange. Oh man, that's called live radio. No, it's okay. But the film is called A Clockwork Shining, everybody, and I've watched it now a couple of times, front to back, and even I have really picked up on so many different points that are brought out in the film, and it's worth it. Most of us have seen Stanley's work, and certainly The Shining is part of that, and then and A Clockwork Orange, and you go and now it's not just those two films. It's a vast body of work with Stanley that is worked on in Jay and Lee's film here. So, but I want to point this out, and I want your expansion on this. The original book by Stephen King is about indigenous cultures. That's it. That's the framework of the book, right? That's the framework of the book, where the hotel is built and the spirit energy and everything. That is completely lost in Kubrick's version.
Yes. Yeah, they kind of say, oh, a lot of famous people lived here. And he does mention it was a Native American burial ground in the opening sequence where they're showing the hotel. But yeah, Kubrick wanted, again, he just had a real problem with any kind of paranormal or ghosts or anything. He was a grit guy. He liked, real solid physics, and he didn't like all that paranormal stuff. And he jettisoned it for the most part. And here's the thing. Stephen King remade The Shining in 1998 or so, a TV series that he made. He wrote it and produced it, and had a friend of mine who directed it, actually. And it wasn't very good. I mean, it wasn't scary, and frankly, hedges don't scare people. And Kubrick was right. What Stephen King proved in his remake of The Shining was that the decisions that Kubrick made about Stephen King's material were right. I mean, it was kind of, some of his ideas were kind of lame. And Kubrick, we show in the movie, not just the Volkswagen being destroyed, but Kubrick had a sign on the set that said, definitely no smoking, but the SMO of smoking was blacked out. So it said definitely no King, right? So it was like, this movie is not about Stephen King. And King hated the movie. And I heard from my friend that he was paid $1 million to stop criticizing The Shining in, 8 or 9 months after it came out. So, and Kubrick honestly really did insult Stephen King by wrecking the red Volkswagen in the movie. So Kubrick kind of deserved the insults that he got from Stephen King. Couldn't be very happy about it. And Stephen King says that he got a phone call one day while Kubrick was shooting the film, and it was from Stanley. And Stanley says, I figured out you actually believe in God, don't you? And Stephen King goes, yeah, I do. And Kubrick goes, I knew it. And he slammed the phone down on him.
Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was Stanley wrestling with the demons of having to figure out how he's going to deal with the ghosts and the paranormal activities that are in the book, which he had to convey in the movie, but didn't really believe in it. And so, he was an atheist for sure. And so he finally figured out that Stephen King was some kind of quasi-religious guy, which Kubrick probably didn't like that much. And, then kind of insulted King about that. And I think King resented that also. And, I'm not a big Stephen King fan. I know everybody is. I'm just not one of them. I think he kind of tells the same story over and over again and uses the same dialogue and everything over and over. But I appreciate him as an artist, and I'm sorry that he didn't like The Shining, although I totally understand why he didn't like The Shining.
Is it possible, because this is what all of this is about, is it possible to control the mind of an individual and have trigger words and have them act?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You can control. With Sirhan wrote over and over, RFK must die, RFK must die, RFK must die, right? And he says he doesn't remember shooting Robert Kennedy, but several witnesses saw him at the hotel doing it. But the thing is that the coroner, Tom Noguchi, the famous coroner from L.A., says that actually Robert Kennedy died from a bullet wound to the neck, right here, from a very close range. And a couple of people actually said they saw his bodyguard lift a gun up and shoot Kennedy, which is, by the way, how a hired killer actually does shoot people. They don't use 9mm or loud gun. They use 22s. Why? They put it as close to the head as they can because it muffles the sound. The bullet bounces around in the head, damaging the bullet so it can't be traced back to the gun. Hired killers don't do things from far away. That's not how they do it. That amateur guy that killed the CEO of the healthcare company, that's not how a hired killer would shoot somebody. They wouldn't wait till they're...
Well, okay, so yeah, let's not get the algorithm to shut this show down. So we need to be careful here. Yeah. But A Clockwork Orange is certainly not the first film about this. You have The Manchurian Candidate as well. And when you look at the approaches to this, I often wonder if there was inside information not only about MK Ultra, but the ability for people to even see the film of the film, like The Manchurian Candidate or The Shining, and then somehow turn around and get triggered from that, and to go down another road. And the ability to do that, because we see it playing out in the media today with the control of the masses.
Yeah, it's interesting because just 1 year before the assassination of Kennedy, Frank Sinatra took in the projection room of the White House, showed Kennedy The Manchurian Candidate. And because this president gets attempted assassination in that movie, Sinatra wanted Kennedy's okay on the film, right? And they were good friends. And Kennedy loved the film. He came out and said, "Oh, it's a great movie. I love it," and made it a hit, which it was pulled after the assassination from being shown for a little while because of the weird nature of it. But again, it's really strange that, here's a film, only 2 films in Hollywood that are really made about mind control. One is A Manchurian Candidate, which is about a president getting assassinated. And the other one is A Clockwork Orange by Kubrick. And you're like, what is going on here? The cosmic coincidence machine is working overtime here. And Kubrick actually came out and complimented Manchurian Candidate for his friend Frank and made it a hit. And a lot of people say that that's what made it a hit, was that he said, "Oh yeah, that's a good film." And so people went out and saw it. So, the whole, the hotel manager in the movie The Shining has a toupee that looks a lot like Kennedy. There's this whole weird Kennedy connection to Stanley Kubrick. A lot of the people that he worked with Kennedy. It looks like Kubrick actually saved the movie Spartacus, made by Kubrick. When Spartacus came out, everybody said it was a left-wing movie and it was not a good movie. And then Kennedy went and saw it. He came out and said, no, this is a really good movie, which it is, by the way. And, made it a hit. In fact, I think that was his biggest hit until 2001: A Space Odyssey. So over and over, we see this kind of relationship between Kennedy and Kubrick, space program, Arthur C. Clarke working with Wernher von Braun. So the whole thing has this weird relationship, and 2001 is clearly a great movie about alchemy, but it's also an advertisement for the aerospace industry. There's no doubt about it. So, the internecine works of this whole thing, of what was really going on in the mid 1960s up until, the 1980s, when he made The Shining, is all part of this kind of narrative that he's trying to get out through 2001, Dr. Strangelove, Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. And really, Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut.
The age of The Manchurian Candidate and Clockwork Orange and The Shining, and we start to look at these films, including 2000, we're pushing 50 and 60 years ago these films were made. The same comments that we are making now, can't those be applied to something like The Matrix as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh
Right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The Matrix, Dark City, there's a whole slew of films about how we're living in this contrived world of
The
control.
Truman Show. The
Yeah,
Truman Show.
came out at the same time as Dark City and The Matrix. They all came out in
Right.
like 3 years of each other. And
Right,
yeah,
right.
they were like Clockwork Orange and The Shining gave birth to this next set of films, which were incredibly fascinating and talking about how we're living in this fake world ruled by the Gnostic demiurge who secretly controls us and directs our dreams and our lives. And, it's like, wow, where did this come from? And it was like 1997 to 2000 was this amazing time in filmography where all these amazing films were coming out describing the weird nature of our false reality. You know what I mean?
I do. And then when you look at, everybody, just relax with what I'm about to say. Check out the movie Fly Me to the Moon. Yeah. Check out that movie with Scarlett Johansson. Yeah. I forget what's Magic remember. Mike or whatever that guy's name is. Dang, Channing Tatum. I got it out. Was he Magic Mike? I don't know. He's one of those Magic Mike looking dudes. Anyway, go and watch that, because that film, it's a comedy, science fiction, conspiracy, love story, all wrapped up. So it appeals to the girls, it appeals to the boys, your science fiction guys, right? It's a cross genre appealing film, but it talks about that the world may not be what it seems. Yeah. And go and watch that film. It's so weird. We could talk about Stanley Kubrick all day long. Go and watch this. That's reaching out to the Hallmark, right? The Hallmark crowd in a very, very direct way about faking the moon landings.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yes, I have. And I liked it. I thought it was actually,
I liked it too.
It was a rom-com sort of, but
it was a rom-com. Oh, it was. You were pulling for Scarlett.
You were Johansson, so
you were pulling for Scarlett. I was.
Yeah, I'm always pulling for Scarlett. But going back to this film period that we were talking about, 97 to 99, 2000, where we had The Truman Show, The Matrix, Dark City. But there's another film that came out talking about the falseness of reality at that time, and that would be Eyes Wide Shut. Because if you think about it, Tom Cruise is the only, if you watch that movie very carefully, you realize that everybody in the movie, including Nicole Kidman, is in on this weird cult that they show in the movie. The only one that doesn't understand that he's dealing with a cult, the only one that doesn't understand what the reality is going on around him is Tom Cruise in that movie. He's completely clueless. The prostitute was part of the cult. Nicole's part of the cult. Sidney Pollack is part of the cult. Like, everybody's part of the cult except Tom Cruise is just walking around clueless, just like in The Truman Show, just like in Dark City, and just like in The Matrix. And these movies all came out at the same time, and it's the weirdest. I call it like the Gnostic revival of cinema. Like suddenly in 3 years, there was all these movies talking about the falseness of reality, the fake gods that rule us, that everything is more like a dream than it is real. And it was really a heady time in cinema, really.
You're leaving one off the list, though. One of my favorites. You're leaving one off the list.
Which one?
They Live.
Oh my God. That was a great movie.
Right.
Yeah.
False reality, man.
Yeah,
Put
actually,
on
that
the
was a little
glasses.
bit before then, but yeah, John
Right.
Carpenter had it nailed for
Had it
sure.
nailed.
Yeah, he
Had it
did.
nailed. Now,
Yeah,
can we segue into this subject a little bit? The subject of UFOs and UAPs,
sure.
because it all ties together. Everything is connected. But in speaking of something like They Live or Eyes Wide Shut, being John Malkovich and all, suddenly, oh yeah, being John Malkovich, that's another one.
Another one. Yeah,
Just came off the top of my head.
yeah,
But when you look at all of this stuff, where yes, there's entertainment value there, it's escapism, right? And what if that factor is there? But today, the possibility of this being woven into part of our reality is front and center with the media and UAPs and UFOs and the James Webb Space Telescope and everything else that is playing out science and physics, and then what's being seen above cities and bases across the world. It's not just the United States. This is a worldwide phenomenon right now. Are these films prepping, like They Live, prepping us for a new reality?
yeah, and we are definitely going into a new reality, Jimmy. There's just no doubt about it. The fourth turning is ending, and a new first turning is beginning, and it's happening right now. We're right in it. It's like super exciting. The technology that's about to come out is just going to friggin' change the world. I mean it. If you're alive in 5 years, you're probably going to be alive in 100 years. That's on just the medical front. On the free energy front, that's breaking out like crazy. You're going to be able to run your entire house for free with no pollution very soon here. You're going to be able to fly from LA to Australia in 2 hours with no pollution, no using energy or anything. It's all breaking loose. The entire world has just said, screw it. I don't care if you want to kill me. We're releasing everything. It appears to be coming out of the Navy, by the way. All the really secret stuff seems to have been developed by the Navy, and now the Navy has decided that they can't win politically anymore, so they're not going to fight politically. They're just going to release the technology. They're doing it without patents, free on the internet. I've talked to the people that are doing all this. It is absolutely the most exciting time to be alive right now. I am like so optimistic about what's happening. The Trump appointed the head of the Navy is a high-tech businessman. Everybody's like, what's he doing appointing a high-tech businessman? Because the only way you can release this technology is through business, through high-tech business. So they have to get high-tech businesses to take the technology, release it in a reasonable fashion. The reason that we're seeing all of this UAP activity and everything is because we've had this technology for at least 70 years. Early 50s is when it got developed, and we had it perfectly developed by the early 60s. I know, I've talked to the people that worked on the projects. I know it's real. I know it's true. But now they realize that if they don't release the technology, they're going to destroy the environment. And so they have to release the technology. But now they're caught in the situation where, why didn't you release it 50 years ago? Which is what they promised, by the way, to all the older guys that are on now dead. Oh, yeah, we're going to release it in 10 years. They told them that in 68, then 70. Oh, yeah, we're going to release it in 10 years. Don't worry, in 88. Now we're going to release it in 10. And finally, the guys got sick and tired of it, right? And started doing whistleblowing stuff. So what's going on is they're going to blame it on the aliens. They're going to say the aliens gave us this technology, right? And that's what really is going on behind the scenes here.
Is that the out clause? Is that the out clause? Is that the escape clause?
That's the escape clause. That's what it is. Oh, we didn't have it. The aliens had it. Well, no, you did have it. We know you had it. All right. You're going to blame the aliens for this whole thing, but you had it. And you know what? At this point, I don't want to hold anyone to blame. If they want to give us the technology, thank you. We need it. We need it to save our planet. We need to take down all the hydroelectric dams and the nuclear power plants and everything. And thank you for releasing it. We wish you had done it 50 years earlier or 40 years earlier, but we don't care. We're not going to blame you. We're not in the blame game. If you want to say the aliens gave it to you, okay, fine, whatever. But that's not what's happening. And we just have to accept that, we screwed up, and for 50 or 60 years, we held on to secrets that we didn't need to hold on to. And I believe Kubrick actually knew about all this. I actually have proof of that. And now it's time, and we're going to be released, and it's going to be within the next year or two. From what the tea leaves I'm reading, it's on its way. There's no stopping it. It's like a flood coming in and pouring. I'm sure you've seen the indications yourself. And
I have. I wonder, and this is why I'm glad I call you friend, because you've really enabled me to question everything, and I do thank you for that. But it seems that the use of the word drone and now UAP being brought into popular culture, that what people are seeing, they don't have another word for it, so they use the word drones.
Exactly.
Drones gets right. So drones gets into the media.
They're not drones.
They're not drones.
They're not drones.
But they're using these words. That's man. The plan is effective. I swear.
It really is. But they're not drones, because first off, a drone by definition has to have a propeller. And these do not have propellers. They're not making noise. They're silent. Some are are airplanes that are being mistaken for UFOs. Yeah. Okay.
And some are drones. Some are drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big ones, the ones that are the size of automobiles, you need to be line of sight to have a drone. I mean, you can't be on the other side of the earth unless you're using satellite, and maybe they have that technology. I don't know, but no, these are not drones. These are self-propelled, self-fueled,
anti-gravitic.
Anti-gravitic vehicles, and they don't need fuel because they're taking fuel from the atmosphere around them. They're extracting 0-point energy, and this is the biggest time in human history. My work on the Cross of Henday. Okay, so in that work we show that the solar system oscillates up and down through the direct plane of the galaxy. Sometimes it's behind the rock and the matter and the stars of the galaxy, and sometimes it's above, and sometimes it's below. When it's right there behind all of that rocky matter, all of the galactic emanations from galactic center are gone. And that's when we enter into the Kali Yuga. Well, about 200 years ago, we started rising above that massive rock and receiving the galactic emanations again. And we moved out of the Kali Yuga. We moved out of the time where we just lived in villages and nobody read any books and nobody knew anybody. Nobody knew anything. Nobody traveled. And now look at us. We got all of the information at the tip of our finger. We live better than the King Henry VIII could ever live. The average person does. We are out of the Kali Yuga. We're moving into a much more vibrant nature state right now. AI is going to just shatter the entire matrix with the inventions that have already been invented but are about to be released. We're going into a place of incredibly long lifespans, fast travel that doesn't cause any pollution, free energy, and God knows what else is coming our way. And it's the greatest time to be alive is right now. Never been better. And we have
to think that if you go back to 1995, there are people that listen to the show that were not born yet, so that's kind of shocking. But if we go back to 1995 and you and I look at the chipset races that were going on, the Pentium 2,
oh yeah,
the right, and the fastest chip ever. And every year, right? And well, you and I are old enough to to remember those days.
Yep.
And you look at a laptop today, and I was just noticing a Microsoft ad about this. But anyway, I digress. Things have gotten pretty impressive. The quantum revolution is
Amazing.
now upon us. And to think about where a laptop is going to be in 5 years, doing way beyond. And so, yeah, it's faster, smaller, smarter. It's all of that. But it's what can be done. It's the tools that people will be using for not only drug research and diseases, right? Where it would take millions of human brains, thousands of years to do the research on, will be done in seconds, right? That's where we are, and that applies to everything else in life, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to say that in 5 years, or maybe 6 or 7 years, you're going to be able to crawl into a vehicle and say, Anchorage, Alaska, and you just sit back and read a book or watch a movie, and the vehicle takes off, gets up to about 8,000 feet, and shoots off and lands right where you are. You don't even have to even do anything. And we're that close. I mean, that's how advanced the AI is. People say AI is like this all-pervasive thing that's going to take over the world. I'm a programmer. I programmed for years. People say that don't understand computers and programming. AI is never going to become conscious. It may become sentient, aware of itself, but not conscious. Not like it can go out and extrapolate on problems and solve problems that it has not been programmed to do. So, but AI is still very, very, very powerful. And
we need to be aware and be scared of it.
We should. And
yes.
and by the way, robots aren't going to take over the world. Every robot's going to need a human to keep it maintained. I mean, you can't. It's a moving
Jay, you're wrong. You don't have a Roomba. you don't have a Roomba. Get yourself a Roomba. Your attitude will change.
Well, I hope not. But the problem is that all maintenance, everything that's mechanical has to be maintained. So I mean, and so it's going to be really hard to have anything that doesn't have a human looking over it, and maybe there won't be many humans. But either way, we're going into a future that is absolutely astonishing. Sci-fi world, the creation of a whole new era that we're going into, that and that's what Musk is doing, I believe. The reason that Musk got involved in politics, which I'm sure he didn't ever want to get involved in, was because he realized that if he didn't free up the regulatory system of the United States, we weren't going to become a star voyaging people, which is what he dreams of, and which I dream of. And so now he's hoping that he can free up a bunch of the regulations so that technology and manufacturing and industry can finally go do what they're meant to do, which is advance.
Sort of. I agree with that, except I look at it a little bit differently. You mentioned 4D chess earlier. I had mentioned 5 years ago on the show, 6 years ago on the show, 7 years ago on the show, keep your eye on Elon Musk, because he has now got everything in play to control every aspect of your life. Dude, when the move went for Twitter, that was like one of the last, because look, he's got his own space company. He literally has his own rockets. Now he has his own social media network to manipulate the masses. He's got his own AI, artificial intelligence network. He's building his own rockets. He's building his own robots. And he has his own internet. He's got Starlink. He owns cars and car manufacturing and the future of electronic vehicles with autonomous self-driving AI capabilities and so on. Elon Musk has put all the chess pieces together to be the king of the world. And if you don't think that that is his, forget about the United States. He wants the world, and he is very close to being just that. And at one point, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. He's very close. Dude, he has his own internet. He has his own rockets. It's crazy. He has the AI technology. He has a social media network. What doesn't he own? Well, nothing. That's the answer. He's king of the world. And that's the 4D chess that Elon played out. What was his what was that payment company that he owned in the beginning? What was that called? PayPal. No, it wasn't PayPal. He had something else. Or was it it wasn't PayPal?
No, he started out with one and then it changed to PayPal.
Yeah. He went from that to king of the world.
Wernher von Braun, the father of NASA, wrote a book in the late 50s called The Conquest of Mars. And Elon is really interested in conquest of Mars, right? Well, in this book, it's a novel. In this book, the United States creates a group of people that fly to Mars and create a colony. And the person that leads the colony on Mars is called the Elon.
Yes.
And everybody after him who runs the colony is called the Elon. It's weird. It's just weird. I mean, the number of weird coincidences that are in the space program, the aerospace industry, Elon, Stanley Kubrick, all of it. So it was like there's something weird going on that we haven't figured out.
The rapid rise of Elon is interesting, and I always thought he was somebody to take a look at. I never considered him to be smart, like an intellectual. He understood something else that was more crucial. I think he understood the lie. He understood people. He understood social structures, which was pretty good for somebody that was supposed to be an introvert, somebody that was supposed to be a geek. No, his big picture and his grand vision of the world and himself was something else that none of us considered. And we let it all happen. And now he's sitting at the center of everything. There isn't anything technically in our lives that he doesn't control or have control of. We have monopoly laws, right? We need to introduce the Elon legislation, right? How much power should somebody really have as an individual?
Well, the thing is that he kind of recognizes the vacuum in nature and goes in and fills it. So the United States.
That's my point. But that's my point. That's not geek think. That's a whole nother level of understanding, man.
Yeah, well, he's very autistic, I hear, and a lot of the rich guys that I've known in my life are kind of autistic. So I think he has the ability to just like concentrate solely on one subject and really figure it out. And we could say the same thing about Stanley Kubrick, by the way, and kind of an obsessive intellectual curiosity, and face it. I mean, we screwed up in our country. We didn't follow through with the space program. We didn't follow through with like a whole lot of things that we started and that were really ambitious, but we really never kind of followed up on it. And Elon came in and said, okay, well, if you're not going to follow up on it, I'm going to follow up on it. And you're right. He probably has way too much power.
Way too much. And do you remember, of course you do, all of the conspiracy stuff about Bill Gates, right? Yeah. Tons of it. Fun to read, fun to, whatever. Bill Gates is Bambi compared to Elon Musk.
Yeah, he is. You're right. I'd never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, he really is. But we'll see where Elon's going. I mean, he's chosen.
I got so much respect for him. I do. Look, I love AI. I do, man. I was over the last couple of weeks, I was doing some AI upscaling, just checking it out and looking at different, and to see that stuff work, it's like, wow. I haven't published anything. I don't care. I just want to, understand the technology a bit more. And there's parts of it when you look at that, or the ability to edit or to take apart stuff and create things. I really do. I really appreciate, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to warn everybody to just keep your eye on stuff. Just be aware. Just be aware. I think most of the people behind AI, I think Elon's intentions are good. I think AI and the people that create that are basically good people. That doesn't mean that there isn't something crazy or nefarious that could be running some aspect of it. So yeah, if you have the ability to create drugs with AI and do 1,000,000 years of research overnight, I think that's a good thing. But that same application, some crazy individual could go, okay, I need a recipe for a weapon to wipe out humans, and then watch how many recipes come in overnight. That's the part that scares me. I mean, some twisted mind using AI or something else to go and do something nuts that could harm a lot of people. That's what scares me, and that's what we need to keep in check. Just keep your eyes open.
Yeah, there's AI is good. What's going to happen is hopefully we won't have a disaster before, but what's going to happen is there's going to be competitive AIs, and they're going to watch each other, and they're going to say, hey, you told this guy this information and you shouldn't have, right? There's going to be this kind of weird AI law enforcement going on that's going to kind of keep everything in check. I don't know if it's going to work. I was actually pondering, why do I have a stockbroker, right? And I have a stockbroker, and I was asking myself, why do I have a guy who's, choosing stocks for me to get, when, maybe he loves Nike shoes, and so he bought a whole bunch of Nike stock with my money, but Nike isn't really a good stock to buy, but he just did it because he likes Nike shoes. Why shouldn't I just get an AI stockbroker who's going to make the decisions with cold reality and not have their own personal biases come in? And, I'm going to say that I'd be worried. I'd be worried if I was a clerical worker right now. I'd be worried if I was a stockbroker. I'd be worried if I was insurance business right now.
A banker, anything. Oh my God, you're going to be wiped out, baby. And it's not going to be long. It's going to be like a year, and you're going to be gone. And they're already doing it. They're already implementing it. So you need to, find work that doesn't require, that AI can't interfere with. AI can't make documentaries. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. AI can't do talk shows. So there is certain work that can be done that AI will never be able to interfere with. But man, especially women, you got to be worried, because 90% of the work that AI is about to take is women's jobs, the clerical jobs, secretary jobs, accounting jobs, a lot of men too. Don't get me wrong. Men are going to lose it too. If you're a plumber, electrician, or a mechanic, a roofer, you're
going to be fine. But those are mostly men's jobs, and they're very physical.
Do you remember? Here's a classic example of what you're talking about. Back in the day, Jay, you and I would watch the news, and they would always do the business at the end of the news, and they would show the New York Stock Exchange with all of those dudes with the tickets, right? And rating the stock. that's empty today.
That's empty.
That job doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Do you remember that? You remember the mayhem on the stock
Oh,
floor? Yeah.
It's all over. No, it's
gone.
a whole new world, man. And the media is dying. Shows like yours are doing really well, while ABC and CBS and Fox, not Fox, but MSNBC and CNN are losing 48% of their viewers in the last few months. Last month, actually. And so the whole media world is being completely torpedoed. I love it, by the way. I gotta admit, I love it. And I don't care, and the days of Rachel Maddow making $30 million, they're gone. All of that's gone. By the way, Hollywood is dying too. Hollywood is on its death throes. Not that it's going to die, but it's going through this incredible change that's going to happen. And you're going to see big budget movies going away and smaller films like my film, Clockwork Shining, coming through, and smaller filmmakers with more innovative ideas using AI and modern filmmaking methods, changing the whole world. And, I'm sad the old world's dying. I'm sad that the epic film is going to go away for the most part. But at the same time, man, I'm really excited about what's going on. And I think it's like, I'm just glad I'm here to watch it. I mean, really, I am.
Did you see hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. Just stay right there, because I'm going to pull this up, because I was so taken aback by this. Okay. Have you seen Coppola's new film?
Yes.
Okay. Now when you see the trailer of the film, which was pretty epic, right? And it's Coppola, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't wait and I think it was probably one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
I would have to really think about a worse film.
I agree. I could not believe it. I was watching.
Did you even understand it?
Not really. It seemed like it was a series of puzzle pieces where they would create something they had to figure out, and then they would figure it out. So it was really weird because, well, okay, now you figured it out. What's next? And it'll be another puzzle piece. And it was like weird. And I don't know. Quentin Tarantino once said that nobody's made a really good motion picture after they're 60. And I tend to agree with that. I tend to think that there's something about the physicality, I think, of making a movie, because it is very physical and very difficult to do. I remember doing the last Avatar. I'd work 16 hours a day. I'd pass out for 4 hours. I couldn't even sleep. I was so worried about making my film. And then when I got done, I literally went to bed for 2 weeks. And I think, 84, I think Coppola is. I don't know, if you have the stamina to do a movie like that every day, I just don't think you do. And I noticed
I felt bad for the actors in Megalopolis. I felt bad for them.
Me too.
The acting was subpar. The script was subpar. There was no real screenplay or storyline. It was very abstract.
And the editing didn't have any rhythm.
Yeah, no, very bad. Yeah.
Oh my God, that he put his entire winery up? You know this, right? He put his entire winery. He had one of those successful wineries in the world, and he put it up, and he lost the whole thing. And Kevin Costner, by the way, did that with Horizon. I don't know if you saw that movie, but he did
it. What was the movie he did about Tucker? He did the same thing with Tucker, he
did.
So anyway, I agree with you though. As we wrap with this, it is an exciting time for so many things. But when you have young filmmakers, screenwriters, or you can do a TV series, whatever it is, but you have the ability now, not only with great software, but cameras are cheap, production is cheap.
That's right.
If you have talent, if you have a good story,
You
can release it yourself. You do not have to go to a film company and get greenlit. And that's yes.
Damn straight. I work with Film Hub, which I really highly recommend for new filmmakers. It's completely AI driven. They're honest. They're transparent. They got released right to Amazon, which is what I did with the Clockwork Shining. I released it right to Amazon. I'm getting, probably 50,000 views in the last 4 weeks of it. This is the most amazing thing as a filmmaker, because I used to have to go through the standard distribution companies, which frankly, if you even understood their contract when you read it, you would have to be a genius. But even after you signed the contract, you never got any money. I mean, not really. So again, I'm dealing with Film Hub, a whole new world of distribution. And I think as a filmmaker, if you've got the creativity and the talent, this is the best time to be a filmmaker right now.
Thank you so much, Jay. Again, another wonderful conversation, my friend. And Jay's new movie is A Clockwork Shining. Go and check it out. I've already seen it a couple of times. I'm going to watch it some more. So much there, so much to unpack. It's a riveting film and a really good analysis of the brave world that we are in today. Jay, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. And it's on Amazon Prime. Just type in A Clockwork Shining. It'll take you right to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the links for it below. Also, Jay, are you gonna come and hang out at Conscious Life again?
I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I haven't been there in a while, but I miss it.
Yeah, I miss you. Okay.
Yeah, I miss you too, man.
Talk to you, brother.
All right, brother. See ya.
The best. Jay Weidner, everybody. Now, A Clockwork Shining is out right now. Just head over to Amazon. You know what to do. Go and get it. It's a great film. And with that, what am I doing tomorrow night? Man, I always do this at the end of the show. I never remember what I'm doing the next night. Oh, yeah. Petros Katapis is with us tomorrow night, and we're going to be talking about ancient history. That's what's going on tomorrow night, all night long. For now, until tomorrow night, all I've got is Go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.